As I've started using 3D fashion design software more, I've been asked this question multiple times. Do I need to know how to make patterns to use 3D fashion software? And my answer is no. But welcome back to my channel. My name is Mikkel Drew Pelham. I am a digital fashion specialist teaching digital fashion design and communication through my company, 383 Design Studio, as well as the Fashion Institute of Technology and various other universities. I talk about digital fashion software, design communication, and fashion entrepreneurship on the channel. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. So you knew it wouldn't be as simple as just answering no, right? Too easy. But there really is a legit reason why I'm adding a but. If you've never used any 3D fashion software like a Style3D, Clo, or Browseware, you may not know that in order for you to create that 3D garment, you have to create a pattern and then digitally sew the pattern to dress the avatar. You're literally doing all the same steps you do if you're creating a physical garment, except in the digital space. So obviously, having a pattern making or sewing background of some kind will make this process that much easier. Now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of creators who don't have a pattern making or sewing background who are very successful at creating garments in 3D. And that's where the no part of my answer comes from. The but comes into play because depending on your end use for your 3D creation, it's less or that much more important for you to understand patterning, fit, and even fabric behavior. So when does it matter least and when does it matter most? Let's start with scenarios when it matters the least. Anytime you're ideating, you want to let your imagination just run wild. You know that eventually you may have to rework some of your ideas. Some of them might not even be feasible at all. But the ideation phase is really just to get your ideas out of your head and onto paper. If you're a Clo 3D user, this might be a good time to use the 3D pen so that you can draw directly on the avatar or on a garment, or use the shape tools and in the 3D window, just create on the avatar and not worry so much about exact lengths, ease, the precision of the classic pattern making. It's almost like a digital draping session. And at this stage, if you're not completely sure what the proper technique is to create that fit, it's not really that big of a deal. You're just going for look and drape and you're just playing. One of the things I used to tell my students was a benefit of using 3D fashion design software was that they never had to hear me say, "How are you getting into that?" If this design is a skin for a character in a computer game or something that will just live in the metaverse and doesn't have to be made into a physical product, it really just needs to look good on the character, but doesn't necessarily need to quote unquote fit. Now, I will say if you are animating your character, you may have to make some adjustments so that the character can actually move in the garment. If you add a fabric and the whole thing is too tight, it's very possible that your avatar will burst a seam trying to walk. But especially if this character is just posed in a scene and or it's a still image, you don't need to worry yourself about adding ease to the pattern for movement. Although there are lots of other benefits that go way beyond marketing, the visuals are still a big reason many people use 3D. And there are a lot of things that can be challenging to recreate in the digital world. For instance, collars and facings are still my Achilles heel because they often cause collisions or unnecessary pulling. But in 3D, if you decide not to include a facing, you really don't even notice that it's not there. And if it looks too thin as a single layer, there are ways to beef up the look of the fabric so it looks thicker as if there are two layers there. Again, this is technically not correct. And making the facing pattern can also get a little tricky sometimes. But if it's just a visual, no one will see it anyway. So you don't really need to worry about it. I can't tell you how many free things I've downloaded from the Clo marketplace that visually looked amazing. And then when you get it into the program and you try to take it apart to work with the patterns, it's a hot mess. But As long as your avatar doesn't move, girl, that dress looks fantastic. The first reason you really want to know what you're doing in terms of pattern making in 3D fashion software is if you plan to use this for sample development. And whether that's for digital protos or creating a physical proto, either way, you want to ensure the pattern actually fits. Many brands will use 3D to create a first proto or a digital proto. And what that means is instead of ordering a physical sample that often has a lot of issues in terms of fit and execution, particularly when it's a brand new silhouette, they do it digitally to save some time, money, resources, to be able to make some decisions about the design so that when the manufacturer proceeds with the first physical garment, it's pretty spot on. There may be some tweaks here and there, but it should be damn near perfect. And if you're a smaller brand sewing your own first samples, you may even use that pattern that you created in the 3D software, print it out, and sew up the sample. And if you're doing that, you definitely want to make sure the pattern is legit. This goes back to the last point, but the necessity for pattern making knowledge is even more important. A true technical designer normally is a fit expert. They may have been a former pattern maker or has made patterns in the past and is also well versed in understanding how fabric behavior can affect the pattern. If your plan is to use 3D fashion software to really create a technical fitted garment, especially in the area of tailored or custom garments, an acute knowledge of pattern making is imperative. It is entirely possible to create production-ready patterns in any 3D fashion design software. At least the big three: Clo, Browseware, Style3D, that I know for sure. There are tools like notches, seam allowance, grading, a POM tool. There's a place where you can make a marker and create the layout of your patterns. Production pattern making, however, is even more intense than sample pattern making. First off, there's just the understanding of how to mark the patterns, making sure you understand where the grain lines are supposed to go, how to create the annotations, and let's not forget understanding grading. That alone is a lesson unto itself. So if you want to become or call yourself a production pattern maker and you don't already have a background in pattern making, I would highly encourage you to get some formal pattern making training and get some lessons on grading. Fortunately, you no longer have to do grading manually, so it's really understanding the math and understanding how your customer's body grows. But do that first before you take on doing the production pattern making in 3D for anyone's brand, including your own. Okay, what can you take away from this? I hope your first takeaway is that if you were hesitant to try using 3D fashion design software because you heard that you need to make patterns and you have no experience in that area, your mind is put at ease and you'll dive in as soon as you can. If you're a designer, you don't have to do every job, including making your own patterns. But what's awesome about 3D is that it allows you to give a very understandable visual to what's in your head. And that's truly game-changing when you're working with clients who don't understand a rough or even a flat sketch. Trying to sell someone on your design with a bunch of Frankenstein conceptual tear sheets is a little tough. Thanks for watching today's video. Let me know in the comments where you are in your 3D fashion design journey. Are you expert level, just beginning, or still thinking about it? And if you are interested in starting your 3D journey, check out my 3D Clo course as well as other videos on this channel. And you can find those links in the description below or right here on the screen. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video if you find it helpful. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you next time.